Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, children of all ages, ninjas, nindies, computer programmers who need artists, and artists who love their computer programmers. This is going to be a video about fair mention, fair use. I'm just kidding. I'm just not plagiarizing. That's why I put there. This is a video about building a game rig. Game rig? No, a game development rig. So if you're an indie developer and you want to buy or build a computer, this is a video that's talking about what you need to look for buying or building a development rig. Tons of videos and commercial stuff about game rigs. I couldn't find one video on YouTube talking about what does a game developer need in 2018 related to buying or building a game development computer. So here are the 4 things I think that you need to consider. I consider these 4 things I'm going to share. Number 1, can use 2D or 3D game creation software. I like making 2D games, but you don't need a powerful computer to play or make 2D games. I need something for 3D game creation. Number 2, can it edit videos? Yes, you need to make videos just to get your stuff out there. I will talk about why 1080 DPI versus 4K. Number 3, streaming video content. Yes, can you actually start streaming you making stuff with your software? That's something I could not do. I was running out of some system resource with my old rig where I couldn't run Inkscape and Blender. It just kept crashing along with my video software. Number 4, playing games. Yes, play testing, research, just for fun. Just put that there. It's like a 4th concern. Remember, not gaming rig. We gotta be using it for productivity. So I told myself last night. Buy rig. I went with buying a rig. This is why. You get a guaranteed build. Anything happens to the system for a year or whatnot, you can get it fixed. That's cool. Number 2, no shipping fees. Woo woo. That's my situation. Usually shipping fees are about, $100, so forth and so on, depending on where you live. Number 3, parts ready to go. That was a good thing because of Phil. I went with Phil's computer repository. Phil's been in the business for more than 10 years, so he's got tons of parts ready to go to make a good quality game development PC. All right. Number 4, Windows Pro 10 edition. That is just standard. That's great. This would have cost me like over $100. I don't want to pay that. That's awesome. 5, no fires. Again, if you don't know anything about thermodynamics, yes, I did just say that, thermodynamics or heat distribution, you could screw up something in your computer that will catch on fire and make it smell like a burnt toaster. Yikes. Build rig. Yes, it is cheaper. You can find cheaper parts. I did shop online for a lot of the parts, but if you put the parts together, it was more expensive for me in my case. The other part too is that like some parts I'd have to order from the US and ship it into South Korea. Ouch, that costs more money. Not doing that. Number 2, guaranteed buys. This is another thing. So yeah, all your parts have warranties on them. So it's a manufacturer warranty of like a year to 3 years. Usually it's just a year. You don't have to worry about anything breaking. I don't know if you're cooking it, it catches on fire and that's your fault. But apparently even if that case, you can still get a new part or replacement part. Number 3, feeling smart. Yeah, bragging rights. That's why they call it the PC Master Race, because you feel smart and awesome. Again, this is from Phil's computer repository. This is his catalog, but any online store worth its merit will have a similar tier system so that you, the consumer, know exactly what you want to buy or where you want to start with. And most places should have things where you can interchange or exchange parts. Sadly, if you go with somewhere like Dell, it's not the case. You can upgrade, but downgrading isn't a possibility. Luckily, with Phil or a smaller company, you can exchange parts and downgrade to get a better price than what you're trying to build. Tier 1 off the bat is for 2D games. Tier 2 is for 2D games and maybe 3D game development, right? And how do I base that again? If a computer can play a certain game, it can usually use the software to make that game. That's what I got from the Godot 3 community or the Godot community when we were talking about game development and running it on people's systems. So just keep that in mind. Tier 1 can easily play 2D games. Thus, logically, it should be able to develop 2D games pretty easily. Tier 2 can do 2D and a little bit of 3D, but I'm basing this on the graphics cards and other factors you can see here. It's still going to struggle. I was working with a tier 2, tier 3 computer. I've kind of gone to tier 5 and I made adjustments to a tier 5 build. Just to keep these in price points, that's like closer to 500 United States dollars. That's less than, that's probably like $800 United States dollars roughly, so forth and so on. So again, building a computer, buying it from a builder, it's just really a lot cheaper. So the thing is, I learned from Tom. He was the developer of Clang, and it was a 2D game. And it was on Construct 2. And the reason why this is so important is that everybody in the Construct 2 community felt this was the game that was going to put Construct 2 on the map. Unfortunately, Tom, in hindsight, built this on his high-end computer at the time, and so people like me who are here could not play the game. And if you know anything about Steam or PC gaming, it may be the master race, but there's a lot of cheap SOBs like me, a lot of cheap people that don't really buy high-end machines. They stick to lower-end machines or older machines. So Tom learned that the hard way. He lost maybe 70% of the Steam market share simply because he did not make his game for older computers. More so the fact 2D platformers is something that Tier 1 and Tier 2 players want more because they have lower-ended machines. Hindsight. So just make sure you make your game for your intended audience. Coolers. AOI liquid coolers are lying to you. Again, I'm referencing. I'm not plagiarizing. You can check out the links below. You can look at the date. This is why we should use more college or academic procedures when we do videos. Just saying, video game journalists. Anyway, coolers are lying to you. Liquid coolers are lying to you. What is the lie? Well, the science is pretty solid though. Initially you have water, it's cold, or liquid, it's cold. It goes through this system, it gets cooled off here, heat goes bye-bye, and then the water or the liquid comes back and it keeps removing heat. Just removing heat and removing heat. However, he ran the tests, and you gotta love science, that him running the tests shows that the longer you run something, the AI coolers don't do anything. Actually, they do less. So after, I think, 10 hours or at least 20 hours of running a system, I'm running my system more than 20 hours, it doesn't matter. You should just get a Cool Master, something that is not a liquid cooler. Liquid coolers are a lie. There you go. Graphics cards. Do you like my intern? I should call him my intern. I got this guy from Pexels, public domain image. Anyway, graphics cards. Thank you, intern. Laughably, this is where my system is at. Again, great for 2D games. This is where the graphics card I was looking at was at. You can see the difference. I didn't go with this. I went with a different graphics card. But just with this card alone, this is what you really want to look at. This is a great site, user benchmark, but you really want to focus on the rendering part, not the gaming part, when you're considering of buying a graphics card. And yes, look at that. Look at that. Ridiculous. So this will be like 30 minutes. This will be maybe an hour or 2 hours. Not worth my life. This is just a note that I put Wolfgang here, but you can see my notes below. We don't see in 4K. Our vision isn't set for 4K or 8K, so shouldn't be a concern for you related to your graphics card and your processing. That's why I just put that there. Why did graphics card GPUs become a big thing? I put Andrew's Blender Group, a site from 2010, and it was basically cycles rendering. Cycles rendering entered Blender around 2010, and then that was the reason you had to get a higher end graphics card. So I'm paraphrasing this, of course. Blender Guru has an amazing GPU, paraphrased, right? This is from CG Geek, and he did a great breakdown of graphics cards. The Radeon Pro Duo, I'm sorry, Intel fanboys. Radeon is doing great right now. They really are a competitor again. And their graphics card with a higher GB, I can't remember what the exact GB is just better for Blender. Especially for EV, the new Blender standard that's going to be coming out for 2.8. The 1080, GTX 1080 is at 2.8, but sadly, again, you can look at the difference between time. Now, card prices, this is like $400 less. This is $400 more. So this is about $600 total. This is about $1,000. I just didn't have the money. I went with this, okay? And case in point, Andrew is actually going with 2 of these graphics cards, I think. So I ended up going with this, which was an MSI GTX 1080 Ti. I went with a gaming one because the gaming versions always go with the gaming's graphics card. They usually come with an extra fan, which is just nice to have an extra fan. And the reason I went with the 11 GB is the higher the GB on the graphics card, the less time it takes, the better it is for renders. So this is a 1080. The 1080 Ti should be somewhere here. It should just take less time. So just keep that in mind. GB matters. CPU. Thank you, intern. Yes, again, I had an Intel on my last machine. I'm not complaining about Intel. I am stating that right now, AMD Ryzen, overall their architecture is better than Intel. That's it. And price-wise is what really sells it. This is the one I went with. I did the research. You can look it up yourself. It's only like $30 more, so forth and so on. It is a superior processor than my last one, generation-wise. It is better than a 26 just because of how the architecture is with an X. I don't know what the X stands for. Do forgive me, but it is better all around. The 27s, if you want to do this is fine. But again, this is more for video editing. Yes, it's like extra $50 or whatever, but I needed to save the money, so I went with this one. This suits my needs. These are just benchmarks, so forth and so on. I'll put a link below in the video so you can see the actual videos that did these benchmarks and how they got their results. But as you can see here, the AMD 26, and they also said Gamers Nexus, also said that the 2600X and the 2600 were relatively the same. And you can see here they are relatively the same. Well, I'm sorry. In their video, they say that all the 26X benchmarks are the same as the 2600 because they're just so close. Now, something to note is, again, 2600X is a little better. It's different, and that's just based on the research that I did related to processing, so forth and so on. So the best value for the money, you got it right there. RAM. What is RAM really? I mean, RAM hasn't really changed much over the years. I mean, last 10 years it hasn't changed. So 2016, this guy does 4K, 8K video editing. He's going with 16 gigs of RAM. So that's what that's what he's saying that you need. His computer has 32, but he goes with 16 gigabytes of RAM. He's saying that is what you need. Even 2018, because I know you're like, well, what about today? Linus Tech Tips notes, yeah, 8 gigabytes. That's all you need for gaming. That's enough for anybody. 16 gigabytes just makes things comfortable. 32 gigabytes is ridiculous. You don't need that much RAM. So I'm going with 16 gigabytes of RAM for video editing or just running software. Right now, my current new rig is running everything so much better. It's great. So GPU, if you have a high-ended GPU, that's great, but it's always going to go against the CPU, which is a lot of RAM. So if you have a very good GPU, you render and do all your 3D stuff on your GPU. Like right now, my HD monitor is connected to my GPU card. It's the first time for me. I've never done something like that. It's great. The CPU, if your GPU sucks, you're probably going to use more CPU, and you're probably going to use a lot of RAM. So Andrew Gardner, he did a great video on this. You can see it. He talks about the difference between CPU versus GPU in Blender. And I also found this on blender.org. They found this is something when you buy a motherboard you want to consider. Make sure the motherboard that you get can support multiple graphics cards. Mine can. It can do SIL, which SIL is kind of where what Andrew did last year, where you take two graphics cards of the same type. So he took two 1080s. And then you run that together, and it does cut your render time in half. It's really interesting. But these are not SILs because they're using different graphics cards. So what you can do is you can have a weaker graphics card and a high-end graphics card, making your renders lower. I may have a really awesome graphics card today, but 4 or 5 years from now, that will probably be a weaker graphics card. I'll probably upgrade, put 2 graphics cards, and it should save me a lot of time, so forth and so on. One last thing to consider, there's like this idea of bottlenecking. So you can't have a super awesome GPU because if it's too strong, it won't work with the CPU plus RAM, vice versa. And this is kind of what will happen, is that the flow of your data will kind of stop. Your computer may turn off. It's just a mess. Case, this video is already going too long. I will put a link somewhere at the end of the video where we talk about the case. And I did this video especially for Phil because he did such a great job. And I couldn't find the case because it's from China or Taiwan or something. And I do talk about it versus a US case. So I hope this all helped. Finally, some community notes. Man, I hope I haven't been going on for too long. Game Developer Progress, join this group. It's a great group. They are trying to do the stuff I've been doing on Friday, which is basically talking to just developers and giving them the emotional support to succeed. You just kind of need that. One of the developers here is a new subscriber. Hey, new subscriber, Shinu Real. And Shinu Real has got a game he's been working on for a while. It's looking really good. I hope to see it finished. Finally, Ludum Dare 42 has just happened. Go out, play some people's games. If you're not part of the jam, you can't really vote. but it's nice to see you guys' comments. I'll put a link below related to our Ludum Dare game. Yeah, that's about it. So I do apologize for this being a longer video. I've just started a job on the weekends, so my time is limited. This is under 15 minutes. Huzzah, it's not 17 minutes. I'm glad I re-recorded this. Insert title phrase, insert catchy phrase here. I will see you guys in the next video, and I hope you to see a lot of your game projects, so forth and so on. Hit that like and subscribe button if you already haven't. And yeah, it's really cool. All right, I'll see you in the next one. Bye.